Welcome to the 40 Under 40 podcast with your hosts, Caitlin Cromit and AJ McQuarrie. They are two entrepreneurs who speak to other entrepreneurs under the age of 40 so you can learn from their successes and failures along their journeys of building businesses. 40 Under 40 podcast hopes to educate, motivate, and inspire people to pursue their dreams of starting a business regardless of age. And now, here are your hosts, Caitlin and AJ.
All right, welcome back, folks. Hey, AJ.
Hey, folks.
Oh my God, it's so typical. How's it going? What's happening with
Caitlin, it's been a while for us. It's been 2 weeks, it's been great. I've been doing really well, and I'm really excited about our next guest, Irene Turtle.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Because you've worked with Irene before, right?
Yes, I've worked with her for about a year and a half. She was my executive coach when I had my last business. She was amazing.
Oh, wow. So what you just talk, what would you guys do?
Yeah, once a week we talked for about an hour and a half, everything and anything people related. If I had issues with my teammates, my clients, she was almost like a business therapist. If I had to fire someone or write someone up, she was like my HR director and executive coach. She was amazing.
Gosh, we all need an Irene in our lives, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's something that I think people don't realize they actually need, but we all kind of need a coach.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we should get going because you know us, we're very chatty and we try to keep it.
We are chatty Cathys.
We're chatty Cathys. So Irene is the founder of Turtle Executive Coaching. She's built an active, successful career as an in-demand coach, facilitator, public speaker. She established her credentials as an executive recruiter before branching out into other areas of HR and project management, succession planning, leadership development. She does it all. She's trained for and consulted with companies ranging from tech startups to large, well-established brands in verticals that include entertainment, biotech, financial services, and healthcare industries. Yeah, and I remember we were talking about she's worked for the Walt Disney Company and all these different amazing organizations. And so I'm so excited to have her here. So welcome, Irene.
Welcome, Irene. So good to have you.
I am so excited to be on the 40 Under 40 podcast.
Right?
Wow.
I know.
Famous.
I saved a whole bunch of time off my age, and you did it for me. I'm so excited.
You are the youngest, wisest person I know. I'll just say that.
There you go.
So you have a cool history. You worked for Disney. You were hiring executives there and leaders. You did a lot of leadership training. Tell us about that experience and how it, brought you to where you are today.
Well, I was working in entertainment and I got this great opportunity to go work for Disney. And I have to say, I loved it. I loved the people. It's like being in this great magical bubble. And we all had our favorite characters. And, people who work for Disney are huge consumers of Disney stuff. So
funny. So it's just as magical as they portray Disney to be.
For me, it was. I have to say, I had a great experience there. Disney does a lot of things really well, and one is hire great people. So that was a fantastic experience for me to be able to hire really phenomenal people. And, if you're a recruiter, hiring great people for the perfect job it's like a drug. It's wonderful. So I had a great time.
So that's what you did then. You were a recruiter or you were hiring?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, I'm curious. So for people, obviously, a lot of people who won't know who you are or your background or anything. Tell us about yourself and what your business is now today.
Well, I'm an executive coach and a team coach. And really what I do is work with executives, entrepreneurs, business leaders, and I help them with their leadership skills. I always say I help them build powerful people skills. Anyone who's ever had a team or been part of a team knows that the leader, even though they're not everything, they're a huge part of the morale, the culture, the success. I know you are both fairly early in your career compared to me, but you'll know that working with great people and having a purpose and working together as a collaborative team without that, you will be successful, but you'll be surviving versus thriving. So to me, the difference between having mediocre or okay leadership skills and really strong, powerful ones is night and day. And that's what excites me. That's what gets me up in the morning. That's what really is my passion, is to help people build those skills and have a much better impact. And also now I'm working a lot with teams, and that's hugely challenging, but hugely rewarding as well.
Oh, I bet.
So leadership skills, it's such an intangible thing, right? And I feel like most entrepreneurs would invest in marketing or Facebook ads way before they would invest in leadership skills. But talk about that. Like, why is it something that it should be at the top of everybody's list? Because I know after working with you, my leadership skills skyrocketed. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
I think people, because we're all people, we think that we instinctively know how to behave with other people, and some of us do and some of us don't. And like you say, people don't think twice about investing in technology. They don't think twice about investing in their marketing or their advertising or all sorts of other things. But again, it's the differentiator often between a really successful company and one that's just getting by is the quality of their leadership. And leadership isn't just for the people with the VP titles. Really, everyone has leadership skills and how they show up. If you think about it, everybody's biggest bottom line item is their people, their employees. So why wouldn't you invest in your biggest asset? That to me is, I know it's not obvious to a lot of people, but it's very obvious to me.
Yeah. And after experience in the field and in different careers and different worlds, like you've seen that. And so young people out there, take note, because this is a bit of wisdom. But yeah, focusing on the people, on the teams is so critical. So I'm curious, when you transitioned, because you were in the corporate life, you were an employee, like you were working for someone else, and then you transitioned to be an entrepreneur. What made you do that? What made you take the leap, and why?
I think, like a lot of people, I went up the corporate ladder. I didn't necessarily, as I got further up the top, didn't necessarily love it. Things that I did like about it, the coaching element, finding the best people. But there was a lot of stuff that I didn't particularly like doing. I might have been okay or good at it, but I didn't like it. And I think I've always had a streak of, maybe call it stubbornness or independence. But even when I worked in corporate, I didn't like being told what to do. And I liked to be left alone to do it. And I would figure out the best way to do it. And I have that talent called maximizer. So I don't believe in anything like good enough. I always wanted it to be great. Sometimes we need a push, right? We need a push, some catalyst that gets us out of that comfort. I hate that word comfort zone, because it's usually not comfortable at all, but the status quo. So it was the recession of 2007, 8, 9. I was in a company, a financial services company, that pretty much imploded. And it was a good opportunity to look out and go, well, if I'm not going to do this now, when am I going to do it? So that was my sort of jumping off point. And I am
during the recession, during this rough time.
I started my coaching practice in the middle of the recession, which, in retrospect was, oh God, what were you thinking? But
and
that's crazy. But how did it go for you?
Yeah, like how did you get clients? Like, what were the first steps you took?
Reaching out to everybody I knew, and I had a pretty decent network. But again, in the recession, as counterintuitive as it might seem, a lot of people were going, oh, no, we can't spend money on that. Leadership skills, personal development. I started off by reaching out to everyone I know, because, coaching personal development, leadership development, it's not something you tend to pick out of the what used to be the yellow pages or off a notice board somewhere. It's something that requires a lot of trust and rapport. Yeah. So that's kind of where I started. And then I did all sorts of other things since, in terms of marketing and social media and podcasts. And
yeah, how was that, like figuring out what you're supposed to do now next?
Yeah, well, I mean, I took a lot of classes. I've done a lot of workshops and webinars, and I'm a learner by nature, so I always wanted to figure out how to do it. But that's also sort of a pitfall, because when you work for a big or mid-sized company, when something goes wrong, you pick the phone up and go, my computer's not working. And now it's me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
And,
you must have been spoiled at Disney.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, there was something for everything you ever needed. Even at mid-sized companies, there's facilities and relocation and IT and everything.
Health insurance.
Oh yeah. What do you mean I don't have a paycheck? It's Friday. There must be a paycheck somewhere, right? Yeah. So I think that's the thing for most people when they go out on their own is, how am I going to get good at all these things that I have to do? And the answer is, for me, I couldn't. So I either had to figure out what I really needed to do and find someone to help me. Whether it was, especially all the things that don't come naturally to me, like marketing and social media, all those things. I never, as an employee, never had to promote myself. I never had to go out and find work. Right. I might be the best in the world, but I don't have any customers and nobody knows about me, then it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter at all. And you could be the worst in the world and have a million customers that know about you, and great, like it's so true.
So, do you think of going back to being an employee ever? Like, what keeps you going as an entrepreneur?
I have thought about it, obviously, especially when COVID hit and things were drying up. Of course, you're always thinking about that, but
it's like the ups and downs, right?
Not enough to do anything about it.
That's good.
Yeah, no, I love what I do, and I love being the master of my own destiny most of the time. But, I think realistically, anyone who says they don't have doubts when they work for themselves and things, business is slow, especially in COVID times, I think they're probably lying.
Liars.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm curious, can you elaborate a little bit more on your business model? Like, tell us how it works for you. What are the different aspects of how you make money, how you grow your business, and what are the arms?
Well, I do individual coaching, which is one-on-one. So I work with entrepreneurs or executives for, usually it's a minimum of 3 months. It could be 6 or 12 months. I also do some facilitation / training. So I'll work with a team on maybe helping them with their communication skills. And as AJ knows, I do a lot of work helping people understand and maximize their talents and other different kinds of training and facilitation. And then I do team coaching, which is a different animal altogether. It's really working with the team as a system and helping them, again, get beyond surviving and getting to the next level.
Love that. And yeah, we'll talk about teams and talents in a bit. So are you just picking up the phone and calling? Are you doing all the sales yourself? How are you getting these clients and growing your business?
Well, a lot of it is referral. Some of it is referral anyway. And the rest, I do a lot of blogging and articles, and I do some social media. And I also work with some big consulting firms. So it's a mixture of stuff. There's no magic pill, or at least if there is, I'm still looking for it.
Aren't we all?
We all, yeah.
So what is, like, if we were, I think people get caught up in this. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, we have to be salespeople. Like we have to be selling ourselves constantly. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get any business, like we talked about. So, what would you say is kind of the selling point for the work that you do? And this kind of goes back to what we said about investing in your people. But when you're approaching someone who's never heard of you or never heard of any of these things that you talk about, what is that thing that you really sell them on that makes them go, I need you?
What problem can I solve for you? What's your problem? It's not about me. There's lots of fantastic coaches out there, but what is it that you need help with? And it's a little cliched, but what keeps you up at night? What's the thing, the issue that keeps recurring in your leadership? Is it that people keep quitting and nobody wants to work with you? Or, maybe you have all these really, really smart people on a team, but they can't work together. So what is it about your leadership, your team, the way it works, the way it doesn't work? What is it that, let's face it, painful enough that you want to invest in having someone come and not fix it for you, but help you make it better, help resolve some of those issues?
Right. And find the way to fix it. Like give the man a fish, he eats
and
for
also,
a day.
It's a lot about rapport too. Not everyone, I'm not meant to work with everyone. Not everyone wants to work with me. But it's trust. It's, AJ knows I have a fairly weird sense of humor. So,
that's why I love you, Irene.
Yeah. Well, this is serious stuff. Let's face it. It's very serious stuff. But if I can find the humor in something, then I will. And, we don't have to have a miserable time doing it. So I use humor a lot because it's just part of who I am. But the rapport and the trust is really important. And people need to have a sense that you know what you're doing if you're going to come in and be in their business, literally in their business.
Right. They need to, that element of trust is huge, especially when you're going in and implanting yourself in someone's team.
And I don't have a product. I don't sell anything other than the training and some of the proprietary stuff that I do. So I'm really selling myself. I'm selling my services. And for a lot of people, that's really hard. And I don't particularly like talking about myself. It's partly who I am, but also that whole Irish thing of self-deprecation and so on. But, it's not about me. It's about what I can do to help you or your company.
You say Irish, and I was thinking the listeners are probably wondering where you're from. You are from Ireland. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, why did you leave Ireland? Do you prefer America over Ireland? I know you're in Pasadena now.
I left to go around the world for a year, and I was on my way to Australia, and I sort of got sidetracked in Los Angeles, and one thing led to another. I did finally go to Australia, but I've gone back to live in Ireland. So it's a long and messy story, but I do go back. I haven't been able to go back in a year and a half. My mother's still there, so it's tough right now not being able to get back there.
Why did you leave? Or like what made you do your around the world?
Oh, I've always been a world traveler. When I graduated from university, I spent a year traveling in the Middle East and Africa, which is probably one of the most just incredible experiences of my life. So I've always been curious about different cultures and countries, and always been a little bit of a big traveler. I left because I was just ready for something different, and I thought, got to do this now. People don't do this in their 50s. Well, some people do, but I was in my early 20s, and I thought, okay, I'm out of here. Let's go.
So you've lived here for a long time in America. What do you feel like is the difference? I mean, imagine if you'd started this business in Ireland versus America. Do you feel like there's differences in the way the countries, the cultures, the societies are in the two countries that would either help or hurt, an entrepreneur?
I mean, it goes back to that promoting yourself. That's a lot more, I think, necessary here, and it's encouraged and it's celebrated. And if you don't do it, you may not be as successful. In Ireland, we're a lot more self-deprecating, and, it's almost a eighth deadly sin for shameless self-promotion. Some people like a lot of need and want a lot of self-promotion, and other people don't. So, but there's so many differences. It's even though we speak kind of the same language, we really don't.
Yeah.
I speak American now, but I didn't when I came here first. So
Well,
there's a lot of translation that had to happen.
I'm so glad you came to Los Angeles, because I don't think we would have met otherwise.
Well, you never know. I'm glad too.
I know. All right, so let's kind of shift gears here. Emotional intelligence, that's been a topic that you talked about a lot. You're very well versed in it. Like, talk to us about what that means, why it's important for business and personal life.
Yeah, it's one of those terms that gets bandied around a lot, and I don't even talk about it that much anymore, because it can be a little cliched. Well, first of all, our personalities are more or less fixed by the time we're into our teens or 20s, and our IQ from much earlier, and those things we really can't fix or change or develop, according to most people anyway. Emotional intelligence isn't one thing. It's not one thing that you get a score for like IQ. It's made up of lots of different elements. And I think prior to the early 90s, when it was first talked about by Daniel Goleman, we called it soft skills or people skills. It's made up of a lot of different things. It's really how well we know ourselves, how well we manage our own emotions, how well we understand other people, and then how we interact with them. So it's made up of all sorts of different elements. You might have a really great sense of confidence, but you might not be necessarily great at influencing other people or managing your own emotions, emotional self-control. I wouldn't say some people say they have no emotional intelligence. It's probably not true, but maybe there are several things that are glaringly obvious that stand out that people would say that.
Maybe it's a little low.
There's been a lot of research that's been done in the last 30 years. And the one thing that is clear is that people with higher emotional intelligence are better performers in the workplace. They're usually happier, they're healthier, they're less stressed, they live longer. I mean,
is it something you can learn? Like if you are low and you're like, I would like to be better, can that grow?
Oh, absolutely. The great news is we can develop it and we can make it stronger. And some people are born naturally with high emotional intelligence, and some people have to work at it. But definitely, I don't think I'd have a job if we couldn't develop it.
That's very true. How do you develop it though? If someone's like, I really need to work on my EQ.
There is, I'm certified in this tool called, EQI 2.0. So you can measure it that way, but also in just talking to someone or maybe doing a 360 interview with all the people who work with you, for you, etc. We can, if you don't already know, if you're not aware of where you need to strengthen it, we can measure it through either the assessment or a 360. But, again, I think with any change in any leadership development, the first step is awareness. You can't change what you're not aware of.
Right.
Of course, there's the element of motivation. If you don't want to change, you're probably not going to either.
Well, and it's interesting because AJ and I are starting a business around the behavioral elements. And that's something that we have really noticed is, you can change your behavior if you are aware of it. And it's really about teaching people what exactly they're like what they're naturally like, so that you can move forward and you can intelligently behave. So I think that's really critical. And something that this kind of reminds me of, I know you do some work on like bullying in the workplace. So I'm assuming bullies have low emotional intelligence, but I'm curious, where did that part of your business come from? What inspired you to take on bullying in the workplace? Was it from the emotional intelligence aspect of it?
I think it was, working in different kinds of companies. There were some companies that I've worked for and clients I worked with when I was doing consulting, where you just you could see that they had good emotional intelligence. They were good leaders. This is not rocket science. They treated people with respect. They helped develop them. They kept putting deposits in the emotional bank account. So when they needed someone to work late, there'd be a deposit there. They didn't yell at people and scream at them. And then there were people that did the exact opposite. So I was always fascinated by what made a great leader what made someone a bully. Some people will argue with this, but I still believe that people don't leave their company for the most part. They very often leave their boss. Conversely,
Heard that.
they will follow that boss to the next company and the one after that and the one after that, because that person will take care of them. If you're someone like me, you don't like to be micromanaged. Nobody wants to be belittled. No one wants to be patronized. No one wants to be treated, poorly. And some people just can't help themselves. That's how they do. And they operate a culture of undermining people and ridiculing people and playing favorites. And sometimes it's very overt and sometimes it's not. The overall effect on that is a bad culture. People say, but yeah, that's all very well, but what about the bottom line? Well, engagement, higher productivity, higher retention, that all affects your bottom line. So if you don't think that's important, well, I think it is, and it makes a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's like a fact.
So do you have any specific stories about a bad boss? I want to get the tea. Spill the tea, girl.
Oh, I have many, many stories. I've watched with horror when I've seen people behave badly. I had an experience myself a few years ago where actually I had the flu and I came in anyway because I had to get all the annual bonuses. So I worked in HR, and when anyone who works in corporate knows the annual bonuses are a big deal. So you have to get them out on time. So I came in to get them approved and went looking for my somewhat boss. And he was actually getting on the elevator with a bunch of guys. And I was a little irritated because I needed this, and it was really important. Otherwise, no one would have got paid. And I said, well, where are you going? Oh, I'm taking my team to play golf. It was Friday afternoon. It was about 12 o'clock. And I remember standing there feeling like somebody had hit me in the gut because I actually was part of his team. But
you weren't invited.
Wow, that's so mean.
It hadn't occurred to him to invite me. And I've seen that happen a lot, where you don't know always whether it's intentional or whether it's on purpose, but it doesn't matter. I think that was the point with that particular company when I decided, okay, it's time to go. But again, sometimes you need that little kick out the door.
Yeah, and I'm curious. I mean, specifically entrepreneurs, you build up your own team. You have your own business, and I feel like it can be a tendency to become almost a bully because you know what you want, and a lot of us have worked alone for years, and it just is strange to have other people coming in. So, what advice do you give to entrepreneurs to kind of avoid that mentality or that maybe unintentional behavior of kind of bullying in a way?
First of all, and this is me, my recruiting hat is always there. Hiring, really being very intentional about the people that you hire is important, because then you get to pick people that complement you and pick people that are going to work well with whatever you need them to do. But sometimes we don't get the opportunity to do that. We inherit people or they get assigned to us. So as a team, as an individual, setting clear expectations with everyone and then holding them accountable. And that requires conversation. It requires sometimes having difficult conversations, which a lot of people don't want to do. They don't like to do it. They find it uncomfortable. And then if it's a team, you know, you need rules of engagement, and you don't necessarily call them that when you're a team. First of all, if you don't all know what the purpose is, then you might be working, you know, to different ends. And, you know, you wouldn't put a football team out without everyone knowing well, usually the purpose is to win the game, but everyone's got a role. Everybody knows that, you know, there's certain things they can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
In the corporate world, we often don't do any of that. It's just, okay, let's put all these really smart, bright people in a room and hope that it's going to turn out great. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't.
That's absolutely, yeah, you have to all be gearing towards a purpose, because that's what's going to get you up in the morning and go to work. It's not the, you know, oh, I get to do paperwork today. No, it's I get to do paperwork so that we can, you know, do this greater thing. So yeah, totally agree.
Yeah,
Irene,
not only does there have to be a person, but everybody has to know what it is, and it has to be the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, and that's very common. A lot of people aren't quite clear why they're there, and can't, you know, articulately tell you what it is.
so you brought up something that you said, difficult conversations. And I think that's kind of the nature of entrepreneurship. You're always having difficult conversations with your team, your customers, your vendors. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs starting out, to be able to really become a pro at having those difficult conversations effectively?
Well, I think a lot of people aren't always in touch with their emotions. They might be irritated, but they don't know why. And I think you have to own it, and, you know, as I said, name it to tame it. So if you're feeling irritated, are you irritated with yourself, or are you irritated with the person who hasn't delivered? And did they know that they had to deliver it by a certain date? So did you set clear expectations? Did you then check in, and did you hold people accountable? Because a lot of people just assume that happens magically. And they also assume that other people behave and think the way we do. And none of that is true.
Mm-hmm.
If some people who are maybe have the responsibility talent, they'll get it done always ahead of time before you ask for it. And then there's other people that will need constant reminding. So I think overall, the skill, the behavior is being honest, being direct, being fair. But it requires conversation. And then when someone isn't delivering or behaving the way that you expect, making sure that you communicate that and find out why. Do they have the right training? Do they have the right materials? Do they have the right resources? Or are they just a bad fit? So it's the same thing with, you know, with vendors and with contractors. Yeah, you know, you have to take responsibility and be direct. You don't have to be mean about it, but you have to be honest and be willing to get over your own discomfort.
And I think expectation, like anytime you're coaching me, how many times does it come back to expectations? Like, it's harder than it looks. Like it's easy to say, but it's hard.
Sometimes we have, you know, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as the ideas people, we have all these fantastic ideas, and they're coming out of our head like antennae, but we haven't maybe thought them through, or we thought about it so much that we almost project that onto other people. And remember, the other people don't have the same talents as us. They don't think the way we think. They've come from a completely different orientation. So just because it's in our head doesn't mean that they're getting that vibe. They're not mind readers. So being really, really clear about your expectations. And sometimes you have to get clear with yourself before you can tell somebody else.
You do a lot of work. You brought it up several times on this call, talents. And yeah, I know you do work with Core Clarity. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about that?
First of all, I like assessments. And, think about if you were a doctor, assessments they're like blood tests or an MRI or something. They kind of, will tell you what's going on, but then they don't tell you, what diet you need to go on or what you need to do to address the problem. One of my most favorite talents it's called Gallup. It's used to be called Strength Finders. Now it's called Clifton Strengths. And then I work with another system called Core Clarity that sits on top of that. And really what it does is help you understand and maximize your unique talents. That Gallup identified, cut a long story short, 34 talents. And the hypothesis is that if we work in our top talents, we will be more successful. Mm-hmm. So everybody has all of these talents, but there are some that are more prevalent. And if we work with those, they'll make us more successful. So again, it's going back to that awareness. Do I know what my talents are? Do I know how to maximize them? How to use them to propel me forward? And how are they holding me back? Maybe I'm really good at something, but it's not really a talent. I've become good at it, but it drains me after I'm spending a whole day doing whatever it is, spreadsheets or something that's not really in line with my talents. I'm drained and I just, I've no energy for anything, as opposed to both of you when you're working in your talents and, you get better at those talents, they become strengths. And then you're very energized and fulfilled. And that's what I try and help people and teams do, is to maximize those so that, we're energized and we're more fulfilled and therefore we're more successful.
Why should people focus more on their talents rather than their
challenges? Well,
yeah.
I mean, there's there are just I think. Well, I think it starts off with when we're even small kids, we come home with 3 A's and a D. What do people focus on? What does the teacher focus on? What do our parents focus on? They focus on that thing, getting better at something that we're not good at, as opposed to working with our raw material and strengthening those things. It seems obvious that would be a better way to spend our time and our energy, but it's not how our education system works or how things work in our.
So true. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I feel like it needs to be kind of rethought with like all that we know now. We can kind of change that. So we love to ask all of our guests this, and I'm curious from your perspective, what advice do you have for a young entrepreneur or a young person just starting out, not even sure if they want to be an entrepreneur? What advice do you have to someone just at the beginning of their journey?
Have money in the bank.
Love it. It's logical advice.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really hard to get creative and to, it's really hard to get things done when you're worried about how you can pay your rent or how you're going to eat or how you're going to pay your car payment. So that's very practical, but it's also, do something that you're really excited and passionate about, and hopefully something where you're working in your talents, and also find great people to do it with. People who hopefully complement the talents that you have.
Love it. All right. Last question. Another one we always ask on this podcast. Do you think entrepreneurs are born entrepreneurs or do they learn to be entrepreneurs?
I think I think some people have talents that are maybe more inclined to that, but I think, again, there's this myth out there that we come out and everything's predestined. I think until you've maybe had a couple of jobs, you don't really realize that isn't for you. So I think it's a bit of both. I think some people are definitely not entrepreneurs, but I think you can develop it. And entrepreneurs look and show up in lots of different ways. So, there's solopreneurs, there's entrepreneurs, there's, entrepreneurs that then grow these conglomerates. So entrepreneurship, I think, looks very different in lots of different people.
Yeah, it can mean a lot of things too.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn. They can Irene Turtle. My company is Turtle Executive Coaching and Leadership Development. So that's my website. And they can call me, email me.
Love it. Well, you are an inspiration. This was incredible. I'm so glad I got to know more about, because I've known you for a few years now, but you don't really dive into this type of detail in your average everyday, conversation.
Yeah,
so.
Irene, you're amazing. It's been a pleasure to have you
This
on.
was wonderful. I so enjoyed it. I've listened to all your other podcasts and they're always fun. So
I love
thank
it.
you.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Thanks
for
for
coming
coming.
on.
Wow, that was awesome. As we predicted, such a great conversation with Irene.
I mean, we have some amazing guests on the show, and Irene was amazing as well.
Absolutely. Well, folks, tune in next time. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you soon. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the 40 Under 40 podcast with Caitlin Crommett and AJ McQuarrie. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort, and we'll catch you in the next episode.